What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today's reaction video is how much wealth every president had.
Presidents. How many presidents have there been?
Oh, you
45?
tested me there. There's been
46?
a lot. You know what? I think that's quite a good shout.
46, I think. I feel like it's 46.
46 may be a fantastic shout. We have seen this number in videos before, so we should know it. But at this moment in time, it's straight over my head.
Yeah, I have no idea, but there's been a lot anyway.
There's been a lot. Smash that like button if you enjoy this content, guys. Smash that subscribe button. I'm pretty sure you've got to be like mega rich to be president.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it costs a lot of money to run it.
So you've got to have the money in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I know the party covers a lot of it, but I think there's personal expense, like, to be able to run.
Yeah.
I may be completely wrong. Please let us know in the comments on Mr. Beat, a legend as well. We've checked him out before, haven't we? May let us know. But it's going to be interesting. Who do you think the richest president is?
Maybe JFK.
JFK? Okay.
Or like a new one. Like
It'd be interesting to see if
Obama,
it take...
maybe?
Maybe.
Obama's got Obamacare. Oh no, wait,
Yeah,
but
but
he didn't get paid for that.
I don't think he got paid for that. The country does, isn't it? I think
Yeah.
it's to do with that. But it'd be interesting to see if inflation's taken into account. I'm gonna go Trump just because I know he's got a lot of money. He's the only one I know has. Well, I know they've all got a lot of money, but I know he had a lot of money before. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because he was in like movies and things, wasn't he?
Yeah. So, well, not just the movies. His business and that. He's got Trump Towers and stuff like that. Smash that like button if you enjoy, guys. Smash that subscribe button as well. Are you ready?
Yes.
Let's get into it. How much wealth every president had? What we got?
I'm Mr. Beat. We
Hello.
Americans, we only elect people to public office who represent us. You know, working class Americans who truly represent
see
the
where this is
will
going.
of the people, who know what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck, who aren't out of touch with what we're going through. I'm kidding. Yeah, the majority of those in Congress are, in fact,
Who's that?
millionaires.
Not sure.
The median net worth for all members of Congress is just over $1 million.
Wow.
Now, don't forget that they do get an annual salary. Currently, that's $174,000 a year. But I'm talking assets, man. They tend to have lots of assets. You know, stuff that has value and can be easily converted to cash if needed. How about American
I know what I need to do in my future life. Or in my next life, if there is ever one.
What?
Get into that business.
What presidency?
Well, just Congress. She's worth 24
It'll
million.
be American though.
Yeah, I know. That's why I said maybe in a future life, if that's a thing. You know, I never know.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, the current annual presidential salary is $400,000.
Okay.
With an additional
Not bad.
$50,000. I know, measly $50,000.
You don't do it for the
on
salary,
expense
though, do you?
account each year.
No.
But let's give it up to President Donald Trump. Like Herbert Hoover and John F. Kennedy before him, he donates his presidential salary each year to various government agencies like the National Park Service
Okay, fair play.
and
Fair
the
enough.
Department of Veteran Affairs. However,
You know
Trump-
what? I
So
like
that makes him minted then.
Oh, yeah, and I feel like if you're president, you don't need to get paid. You have enough money anyway.
Yeah, and also
And
like you have your
you run
house,
the country.
nice big house you live in, and
Exactly. I don't think you need to get paid to be president. I understand some people say, well, you should
it's
do
like a
it's just a job.
privilege, isn't it?
But yeah, I like that.
It is a job, but also like it is a privilege to be the president of your country.
Definitely.
Trump is a billionaire, the country's
Billionaire.
first billionaire president.
Oh, he
as
is
a
the
matter of
richest
fact,
then.
So
Okay.
he can easily afford to donate his salary. Plus, the idea that he is, quote, working for nothing is incredibly misleading since President Trump continues to make money from all the real estate he owns or manages. He has actually faced multiple lawsuits for this. Those suing him argue that by making money through his real estate ventures while in office, he has violated the U.S. Constitution's emoluments clauses. But
Okay.
anyway, yeah, Donald Trump is the richest president in American history.
Go
But
right. Let's go.
Looking into this, I got curious. So here is how rich every president was throughout American history, from poorest to richest.
Okay.
Now that said, we are going to look at peak wealth for the sake of this video. There
makes
were
sense.
several presidents who had debts when they died, so they literally had a negative net worth.
Oh, wow.
Oh, and one more thing. The main source for this information is from a report from 24/7 Wall Street. I have linked it in the description of this video. Harry Truman. Yep, by
Truman
most
Show.
accounts, he was our
not bad.
poorest president.
I know.
He had
Definitely
lots
not.
of odd jobs as a young adult, spent time in railroad construction and working on his family farm, and had a failed hat shop. He only was able to enter politics due to his connections he made through his military service. Him not having much wealth led to Congress literally doubling the presidential salary to $100,000 while he was in office in 1949. However,
Wow.
he famously continued to struggle financially after he left the presidency. This was also why Congress created the presidential pension in 1958. And in 1966, Truman and his wife, Bess, got the first Medicare cards after the government program began. Calvin
That just kind of makes sense, though. We won't pause too much. I know we paused already, but the fact that back in the day, it weren't exactly just rich people going in or older people with a lot more money. It makes more sense. Do you know what I mean? Just the way times are.
Yeah, just
now.
being picky. It would be nice to know on the video when they were president.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
That's just.
I mean, I'm not guessing he's been president recently. Just going off by the
I'm not,
images.
but just for preference.
No, definitely. But I feel like, please let us know in the comments, I feel like nowadays, you have to be pretty much loaded to be president. Maybe completely wrong, but I feel
But then
like
I
you have
guess
to be.
like also the way the world is as well now. Like it's so expensive to live,
everything
isn't
costs
it?
so much.
It's, even campaigns back then probably didn't cost
Oh,
as much as they
definitely
do
not.
now.
And as soon as if you had a compelling thing, you could easily get it across. Where now you need so much money to portray it across everyone, don't you?
And back then they seemed to get the message out without like using TVs.
Oh,
and
yeah, they
things
didn't-
like
they
that.
didn't have
And now
anything.
look at what we've got. We've got
Yeah.
to pay more for it.
Definitely.
Before entering politics for 20 years, he had a fairly modest career as a lawyer. After he left the presidency, he got some money from his memoir and columns in
I've
all
never heard
kinds
of
of
him.
magazines, but that's basically it. Woodrow Wilson. Sure,
Okay.
he was the only president to have a PhD, but he never made
Smart.
much money. Before entering state politics, he did make a comfortable living as a professor at Princeton, and then he did rather
his
well after he
glasses.
worked his way up to president of Princeton. Chester Arthur. Hey, Chester, congratulations on being the 41st richest president in American
Better than
history. Or, put another way, fourth poorest. Yeah, his first career was as a teacher. He later was
Fair
a
play.
principal and lawyer. James Garfield. Yep, Garfield was also a teacher, teaching Greek and Latin at Western Reserve Eclectic Institute. He also was a minister. Yep, it seemed Garfield did not care about making money. Ulysses
that, though. No,
Grant.
thinks about money.
Sure,
Yeah.
he was a hero of the Civil War and a military genius, but struggled to earn wealth outside of the military and politics. Many forget he also fought in the Mexican-American War.
Oh, wow.
After he left the army in 1854, he failed at both farming and real estate, only beginning to earn money when his dad gave him work in leather goods. After
Okay.
he left the presidency, he had a series of failed investments that left him bankrupt, and he
Oh, wow.
literally put together a memoir while he was dying so that debt wouldn't go to his wife and kids. Andrew Johnson.
like that.
Throughout his
Yeah, you definitely. I like that he's avoiding it. But it's mad that someone can have so much influence over such a powerful nation. I know it was still baby and it was growing back then, but then to be basically in debt,
That's crazy.
it's mental. That is
But
mental.
that's just like celebrities, isn't it, as well? Because there's so many celebrities that go into that.
Oh, 100%. But it's kind of
You wouldn't expect
you
it,
rule the
'cause-
country pretty
yeah.
much. Do you know what I mean? I know it's not
It's like the
technically
king.
ruling.
It's like the king going into debt, isn't it? Or
Yeah.
like the prince or princesses. Or
Exactly.
whatever.
It's quite hard to believe, isn't it?
political
They are just
career,
little
he
people.
constantly complained about plantation wealth in the South. He also definitely grew up poor and
That's
with
how,
little
so.
formal education, not learning how to read or write until he was 17
Then he
years
was
old.
president.
However,
Wow.
he did make a comfortable
So you can
living
make
as a tailor before entering into politics. Abraham Lincoln.
Legend.
Sure, he's our most beloved president today, but he's also the 8th poorest in history. He actually had a similar upbringing to Andrew Johnson, who was his vice president who took over after Lincoln was assassinated. But yeah, Lincoln was also poor growing up and made money in his 20s doing manual labor, like literally splitting wood all day. After that,
Wow.
he did all kinds of work, including being a postmaster and owning a general store. Only after he was elected to the Illinois state legislature did he decide to become a lawyer. James Buchanan. Well, how about that? The president before Lincoln, who is often considered the worst the United States has ever had. Buchanan actually came from a fairly wealthy family. However, he never made much money himself since he basically spent his entire career in public service. Oh, and he never married into wealth since he never married anyone.
Fair
William
enough.
McKinley.
He was already in wealth as well.
McKinley also didn't gain much wealth over his life since he spent his entire career in public service. It also didn't help that he never got any big inheritance. Oh, and while he was governor of Ohio, he went bankrupt during the Panic of 1893.
While he was governor.
Warren Harding. Guess what? Harding was also a teacher, but he also worked in insurance. He started to make some money when he helped turn around.
Well, if you want to be a
Listen,
president,
I wanna be a president.
yeah, I mean, you technically do have your citizenship over there.
The money's not in teaching. I can vouch for these people.
And I think the idea is they're educated,
My poor
smart,
people.
have the ability to use like the literature to persuade people and stuff like
But it
that.
just
I guess
shows
it
that
makes
even the
sense.
people that have like all the qualifications still can turn out to be the poor people.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, I wouldn't even say having a net worth of 1 million is poor,
I'm going to say, yeah, but it's not poor at all.
but in
some of
comparison to what like whoever the top one is, well, we know who the top one is.
No, definitely, but some of them bankrupt and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it shows you can be at the top and then go bankrupt. And it also shows you can come from nothing and do whatever you want in the world. So take a positive from that.
Around a once failing newspaper, but Harding owed much of his wealth to his wife, Mabel, who was the daughter of a wealthy banker.
Ah, okay.
Franklin Pierce. Pierce had a modest upbringing on a frontier
Did him
farm,
with 2
but his
millions
wife,
now.
Jane, had a lot of wealth in her family. Pierce had his own law practice before entering politics. He also served in the military.
Fair play.
Rutherford Hayes. Hayes' main career was
That's a long
lawyer, like so many other future
Rutherford.
politicians. He was a darn good lawyer, though, and won some big cases that helped him earn a decent living. He served in the Civil War and got into politics after that. William Taft. He started out as a lawyer who had connections right off the bat, then later became Solicitor General, a federal judge, and famously was the only president to also serve later on as a Supreme Court justice.
I was going to say
Oh,
something
wow.
else
And
then.
being in
I was
the
going to say serve time in prison or something. It's like, what?
I
Where
just
are we going
say-
with that?
I mean, there's one thing falling from bankrupt because you can make some bad decisions like that, but then going to jail
Yeah,
is
but
also
that's where it
another
was
thing.
going.
It's-
judicial branch generally pays
Of course
better
you-
than
Nah, definitely. Fair play to him.
the legislative branch and executive branch. Millard Fillmore. He was born into
I've not heard of
poverty
half of
and
these.
never got any inheritance. Despite little formal schooling, he worked his butt off and ended up becoming a
Fair play.
big-time lawyer in the Buffalo, New York area.
Work your
Before
butt
that,
off.
he was also a teacher for a while. Education was so important to him that
There's
later
hope for
he
me.
helped start a university, later called the University at Buffalo. He was its first chancellor. William Henry Harrison.
Oh, he was a
He
recent
spent
president.
much of his career in the military. Now, Harrison had some wealth since his wife, Anna, had wealth. Her dad was a big-time judge and landowner. Also, after his mom died, he inherited 3,000 acres of land, which he,
3,000?
get this, turned around and sold to his brother? That all said, Harrison ended up losing nearly
You're
all his wealth by the
Your brother got shafted if he's sold. I'm hoping that his brother got like half and half and then he sold the half to him.
Well, I'm guessing that's what's happening.
But if he's got all of it and then sold it to his brother, that's brutal, isn't it?
I'm guessing the parents have left them equal.
I mean,
he just sold it to him.
Maybe
to
they
have the
just
whole
didn't
thing.
like his little brother or older brother, whichever it is.
Well, no.
They
I
might
don't
not
think
have.
that- Yeah, but I don't.
Let us know in the comments if you know.
the time he became president. And remember, he was only in office for 31 days. After he
31
died, he
days.
left Anna
died.
hardly anything, and Congress ended up making a special pension for her.
Oh, wow.
Benjamin Harrison. Well, how about that? William's grandson still ended up having a bit more wealth than him. Unlike his grandpa, Benjamin was mostly a self-made man. He was one of the highest paid lawyers in the
As
country.
if having two presidents in your family.
Zachary
That's
Taylor.
mad, innit?
Famous for his distinguished military career before he became president, Taylor got his wealth in several other ways. First of all, he inherited lots of land in multiple states. In addition, he made lots of money in land speculation as a landlord and made big investments in bank and utility stocks.
Okay.
Because of all that, he owned a huge plantation which had around 80 slaves. Gerald Ford. Ford had a middle-class upbringing and spent most of his life in public service, going right into politics after serving in World War II. He
Again,
did make
fair
the
play.
most of his wealth after he was president, getting millions of dollars from book advances and from serving on the boards of big-time corporations. Jimmy Carter.
I feel like you
Carter
definitely could make a lot of money
Yeah.
after, especially nowadays.
Yeah, imagine just going in any job, wouldn't you?
Just for
Like,
publicity, you've got, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Easily make a lot of
easily
money.
afterwards. Yeah.
Eyeballs on you and stuff like that.
famously was a peanut farmer before entering
Wow,
politics.
peanut
After he
farmer.
took over his father's peanut farm, they didn't make much money at all. However, he ended up turning the farm around so that he made a comfortable living. Still, by the time he lost his re-election bid for president in 1980, he was in debt since his farm had failed after he put it into a blind trust while he was in office. However, since then, he and his wife Rosalind have made lots of money publishing
at
lots
him.
of books. Dwight Eisenhower, another career military man and famously
military
a
man.
World War II hero, Eisenhower also had a modest upbringing and inherited no wealth. However, he did get some added family wealth after marrying his wife, Mamie. Of course, Eisenhower was always smart with his investments, which is why he and Mamie retired comfortably after he left the presidency.
Fair play.
John F. Kennedy. Opposite of Eisenhower, yes, Kennedy was born into lots of
10
wealth
mil.
and always had lots of connections. Kennedy's dad was one of the richest men in the country, as a matter of fact. Also, by the time Kennedy married Jackie, she had lots of oil money in her family. No, not oily money. That'd be gross. Money from the oil industry.
Yeah.
So while JFK went straight from the military to politics, he could easily afford to. Almost all of his wealth came from a trust shared with other family members.
Wow. I need that in my life.
James Polk,
I need that in my
another
life.
president literally born in a log cabin,
if these
but don't
are
be
actually the
fooled.
original
His dad
houses?
was a wealthy
I'm not
plantation owner and land speculator.
I don't think
Polk's
so.
wife, Sarah, also had a wealthy family. So yeah, even though Polk was only briefly a lawyer before entering politics, he had lots of assets, including a 920-acre plantation and 25 slaves.
Oh,
Ronald Reagan. Well, many forget
I've heard
this,
about
but
him.
Reagan was a movie and TV star before entering politics.
40
Before
million's not
that,
bad.
he was in radio. He was also paid well as a GE spokesperson. Later, he also made lots of money from books. Now, this one surprised me. Richard Nixon.
Okay.
He grew up in relative poverty, didn't inherit much, and worked as a public servant most of his life.
And has
After resigning
17
from
mil.
the
Wow.
presidency, he had financial struggles. However, later on, he made money from a series of interviews with David Frost and from a bunch of books. Eventually, he was able to build up his wealth due to a bunch of smart real estate investments.
Okay.
John Adams. Sure, Adams got an inheritance, but his wife
There's a couple of these, which is an example. Old school, got a lot of money still. You know what I mean? So it just shows that you don't need all the money sometimes, because people with money were getting in, people without money were getting in.
Abigail also had a lot of family wealth. Because of this, they were set. Also, Adams had a very successful law practice. John Quincy Adams. John's son did even better than his dad. Of course, he
Wow.
got most of his dad's land, but additionally, his wife, the terrific Louisa, was the daughter of a wealthy merchant. So, yep, he was a career
Doesn't look
public
happy
servant
about it.
because he just watched those assets become more and more valuable. George H.W. Bush. Bush Sr. was also born into wealth, and he just built upon it as an adult with all the connections he had. He made lots of money running an offshore oil drilling company and also had lots of real estate investments.
26 mil,
Grover
that's mad, isn't it?
Cleveland.
Crazy.
He had a relatively modest upbringing and built up his wealth as an adult. His wife, Frances, was the daughter of a wealthy lawyer. But this is a strange one, though. From what I could gather, Cleveland got wealthy by just being ridiculously smart with where he put his money. He married
Can't go
late,
wrong.
only after he was president, and invested heavily in real estate. Martin Van Buren. Van Buren
89
also had a
mil.
relatively modest upbringing and built up his wealth through his law practice. And he also invested in real estate. Are you starting to notice a pattern here?
Yeah.
James
A lot of money in real
Monroe.
estate.
He was born into wealth, and his wife, Elizabeth, was too. At one point, they had 250 slaves on a 3,500-acre plantation, yet he
That's
still
mad, isn't it?
somehow ended up in debt, having to sell the plantation.
Wow.
George W. Bush. Like John Quincy Adams, Bush Jr. has ended up building up even
As if
more
there's so many,
wealth than
like,
his
with
dad.
Families.
Families, I get the families with a lot of money. So if they've been president want a lot of money, pass it down, they can go into it. But for ones which don't have as much money,
It's bizarre, isn't
It
it?
is mental. About
Of all the people in America, 2 in the same family.
definitely. I suppose they've got the connections, haven't they?
I
So they're more
suppose,
likely
yeah.
to get through, but still, it's still a hard shot.
George H.W. Bush. And it's all because of his painting career. Just kidding. Although
say.
he has made money from those paintings. Before his political career, George W. Bush also made millions in the oil industry and owned a freaking professional baseball team, for crying out loud, the
Oh, wow.
Texas Rangers. After leaving the presidency, he has also made tens of millions thanks to speaking fees and book deals.
Easy once you've
Barack
been president
Obama.
nowadays.
Before
14
Obama
mil.
entered politics,
Not bad.
he had various careers, including being a lawyer, community organizer, and even teacher. Most of his wealth has come since he left the presidency 3.5 years ago. He gets paid hundreds of thousands of dollars each year for speeches alone. He also has sold millions of books and launched a production company with his wife, Michelle.
Okay, makes sense.
John Tyler. The 10th president is the 11th richest in American history, and it's all about that old money. He inherited a 1,000-acre tobacco plantation, and his first wife, Letitia, also had a ridiculously wealthy family. However, he was another one who lost most of his wealth by the end of his life.
How do you lose
Franklin
57
D.
I know,
Roosevelt.
where you putting that?
He inherited a bunch and got a bunch through his marriage to the fantastic Eleanor. He was able to maintain and build up his wealth due to real estate and other investments, and spent most of his adult life in politics and briefly being a lawyer.
Fair
Bill
enough.
Clinton. Clinton is another one who was not wealthy
is-
before he was president.
We know Trump, obviously, billionaire. We know Trump's number 1. 75 mil is number 9.
Yes, how much is he on? How
Well-
much is he worth?
We know, obviously, Trump's billions, but there's still at least 7 other people who have more than 75 mil. That's a ridiculous amount of money. That's mad, isn't it?
Crazy.
He almost immediately went into politics after a short stint as a professor. Remember, he started young, becoming the Attorney General of Arkansas when he was only 30 years old.
Okay.
Similar to Obama, he and his wife Hillary have made most of their wealth since he left the presidency through huge book deals, paid speeches,
the way.
and
Books and real
business
estate.
consulting.
Didn't Hillary run for president?
Herbert.
Is that
Yeah, I
right?
think she did. I think she did against Trump, didn't she?
I think so.
She may have done before as well, but I wouldn't have
I
known.
don't remember about that.
But,
I remember she ran. I think it was the Trump.
I think it was against Trump.
Hoover. Sure, Hoover was wealthy, but he's another self-made man. He was
Fair play.
for an orphan young.
An orphan.
But he eventually made
president.
lots of money in the mining industry, first as an engineer and later as an executive, eventually expanding his operations around the world. He
Okay.
also sold many books. Lyndon
People
B.
with books.
Johnson. LBJ was another
100
career
mil.
politician, although he was a teacher for a few months while in college. So why was he so wealthy by the time he died? His wife, Lady Bird, who yes, inherited wealth, but was also very business savvy. Thanks to her, LBJ had lots of profitable investments.
Okay.
Okay.
James Madison. Born into great wealth, much of the land he owned was passed down to him. Eventually, he was the largest landowner in Orange County, Virginia, with around 5,000 acres. He also had more than 100 slaves. Toward the end of his life, however, he lost quite a bit of money. Andrew Jackson.
I'm sure he had a lot.
Historians
Yeah,
often
so
call
it's-
him our first, quote, common man president, but he was the 5th wealthiest president of all time. Perhaps Jackson never forgot about his upbringing. He was poor growing up. He started out as a saddle maker and teacher,
wow.
but only started to make a decent living as a lawyer. His wife, Rachel, had some wealth in her family, and Jackson's law practice ended up doing very well. Plus, he got paid decently while in the military. More
Okay.
importantly, he
Self-made
got
again, then.
1,050 acres of amazing land in Tennessee. Throughout his life, he owned as many as 300 slaves. Theodore Roosevelt. Teddy got a trust fund. A big one. His family was
Wow.
extremely wealthy and had lots of connections. He spent the majority of his adult life in politics, so didn't earn an extraordinary amount. He also lost a lot of money on a ranching investment in the Dakotas. However, overall his wealth was sustained through valuable real estate and writing books.
And just the amount of money
Thomas
he had.
Jefferson. Jefferson
2 through
inherited
6.
3,000 acres of valuable land and around 175 slaves. Over his life, Jefferson would own more slaves than any other president, with more than 600. While most of his wealth came from his famous 5,000-acre plantation Monticello, he also
Well,
made
maybe that is
serious
the
money
places.
in all the different political positions.
Maybe, I don't know. Let us know in the comments. I
Or
think
maybe that's just what they look like now.
I think it's just examples of kind of
Okay.
typical things. Some of them maybe, but I think some of them where they've talked about like old wooden
Old
huts and stuff
houses
like
and
that. I don't
stuff
think like,
can't be, can it?
especially not it looks modern stuff. I think it's just an
It's not
example,
survived all this time.
just a stock image of it or something like that. I think.
He was in. Similar to his friend James Madison, he also lost quite a bit of money toward the end of his life. George Washington. By now, this
587.
story is all
George
too
Washington.
familiar. Property. Lots of property. Sadly, human property. My favorite president also, unfortunately, had over 300 slaves. His plantation, Mount Vernon, was made up of 5 separate farms on more than 8,000 acres of some of the richest
Oh my
farmland in
days.
Virginia. His wealth also had help from his wife, Martha, who inherited lots of property after her first husband died. Even as president, he made a higher salary than all other presidents when adjusted for inflation. I mean, he
Okay.
was a pretty good president. And as I said at the beginning of the video, the richest president in American history is Donald Trump. As most of
A
you
lot of
already
money.
know, he
Yeah.
inherited lots of real estate wealth, and he has grown his real estate empire over the years, mostly due to the marketing
that.
of his
Yeah.
image. While it's assumed he is our first billionaire president, no one really knows his actual net worth since the Trump organization is privately held. Forbes magazine estimates it to be around $2.1 billion.
Wow.
So there you have it.
So Joe Biden
In
wasn't
general, the poorest presidents served in the late 1800s to
Yeah, so it's obviously done before
So
Joe
it's
Biden.
45.
So it's 45 presidents. So I think you said 46,
45,
46, didn't you? So well done. 46 is the next one we meant, didn't we?
Yeah, I said 45, 46.
Yeah, exactly. It's 45 now, going into 46 is
Yeah.
what we meant. Smash that like button if you enjoy, guys. Smash that subscribe button as well. Yeah, should you enjoy that?
Yeah, it was interesting.
If anyone is watching out here and there's been a future president or is anywhere near that network, just,
I needed £5.
yeah, £5 will do, to be fair. Yeah, we
That's
wouldn't
it.
mind. And what should we do?
Have a fantastic day.
And we'll see you, legends, in the next one. Peace.